Thanks. No, it's a great pleasure to be here. And once again, thanks to Tom Sincere for the lovely invitation. I think probably just a good place to start is, how did I get here? So I'll just give you a little bit of background. I'm located on the South Shore of Boston. I'm in Hingham. And I started out, as you alluded to, really in New York for almost 20 years as, an aspiring actor, writer, director, producer, and by virtue of that, or otherwise, I had to do many different jobs to be able to get out there and practice my art. So, I learned desktop publishing, when that was coming up. I learned editing. I did a little bookkeeping at one point. I eventually learned animation. Meanwhile, I was doing everything from a unique style of sketch comedy that myself and originally 6 other people invented. And 4 of us went on to perform in New York. And then I ended up doing things like Shakespeare, because I was classically trained, and student films, background work, whatever I could do to make the boat stay afloat, and just keep practicing my art. So that's kind of the history, and then we just moved up here because my wife grew up here from about the age of 10. She's originally from England, and so her family settled over in Cohasset, the neighboring town to Hingham, and so she had an interesting experience. And as it happens with many families, we migrated back to her family, and of course she has her youngest sister lives down the road in Situate and has a dental practice, and her parents have now moved to Hingham as well. And so it's a lovely way of life out here. It's really a great quality of life. Yeah, so I can dive in. I think the question that I posed answering is, well, why video? Mm-hmm. And you know what? Let me open it up. Does anybody have any ideas about why video? They think video might be important.
I'm sorry, I came in a little late. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about socially. What's the context?
Yeah, so video marketing, because I am a filmmaker. I empower leaders with films and video. I make sure you get the right video used in the right way to help you achieve business goals. So there's a little bit more context for you.
So I'm actually the executive producer of touringnewengland.org, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, Darrin. I think video is very important. In our way of using video is we're able to go around Boston and share different tourist areas with those outside New England, and we've gotten a good I think we've gotten a good fan base because of video, because we put our videos up on YouTube, and I know one of our videos has over 700 views right now. And
Steve, I guess the question is, you could be putting up poetry, you could be putting up postcards, you could be offering a food booth in the middle of Boston Common. Why do you choose videos as your way of expressing yourself?
It's a creativity.
But why videos in particular? Is there something about them that seems really special to you? Especially as a radio man. Is there something about videos that
I'm actually Darrin as well, as I'm a former radio DJ with the college radio station. And I just, like I said, I feel that it's a good thing to have. I'm able to share what I know of. I'm able to share what I know about, different areas of interest to different people around Boston and outside Boston and the New England area.
Why do you think an audience would prefer to see your video, Steve, than to just have you write a note or write a book or write an article about something?
Because it gives them the real deep insight of what the event, what the activity is all about.
So a video
What they
conveys,
can expect when they go.
because it has pictures, is it the pictures that get people to see what you want them to see? Like your background?
So pictures create a better sense of what it is.
I got it. Mark?
Video.
Well, I have multiple perspectives on this. There's my own perspective for my business and my marketing. There's my perspective on what you might call the great unwashed, what I feel the internet has devolved into. And then I think there's the pure aspect of the medium per se. So not to be too long-winded about it. For myself, I have no time or patience, nor I think camera presence to even think about using video without a lot of thought and practice, which I don't have any time for because I'm busy with my current clients. So in my ironic case, since I have plenty of work, I don't feel a big motivation to take on more marketing efforts, which is terrific. My personal feeling about seeing videos online is I find them irritating and slow and don't give me information in the time in which I would rather spend on it. So when I'm Googling something, sure, a third of my hits are YouTube videos. And if I think seeing something would be helpful, like how to plug in, how to operate a given dialog box, sure, and I will run that video as fast as it will run, because most people are I find that I get impatient with the click on settings and then click on it's like I know I'm already looking at the dialog. How do I handle it?
Yes.
So I love the ability to speed through at least YouTube's video. So I much rather
just to echo what you're saying and also maybe add something to it, which is just and for all of us when we're creating videos, particularly if they're informational videos, I would greatly appreciate it if people would do both. There are many people who do. They put the video up, but they also include the script of the video, which I find extraordinarily helpful because then if I want to see the picture, I can, but I can choose to skip the picture and just get to the root of what I'm trying to read about.
Oh, I can skim text far faster than I can sit through someone's video. But and I can control, and if there's captioning or even automatic captioning, that can help me adjust for the running it at 2x speed when they might although they don't become chipmunks anymore because of cool technology, it can still be hard to understand someone. But I also think in this current world of overwhelm and tiny screens and lack of attention, and how many people are ADD? They have 1,000 things demanding their attention. I think the video thing brings people, like Adam said, or Adam and Steve said, pictures draw people in, but I think engagement or content or personality make them stay. And I think so many people don't have the latter, that it's a poor, despite the terabytes per minute or whatever they're being uploaded, it's a poor selection out there. That being said, occasionally I run across someone who's showing me how to take apart exactly my model of printer and to get the power supply that for them to shoot still photos and embed it among the text, would be a lot more work for them. And I love those people. A friend of mine had a hot water heater problem and he found somebody with a video of exactly his model and how to replace whatever it was, the heating element or something. That I find thrilling. And I love how the average person, with maybe slightly above average skills, can just post that for free for all to see. I think that's amazing and wonderful. And some people, I don't subscribe, but I look through the YouTube channel for other interesting or amusing things. I learned how to clean the inside of my windshield of my car from this car guy who had like a 3 or 4 layered approach. And one of the other videos was, using the airbag explosive element of cars to launch a football to see how far he could make it fly. And the FBI came knocking on his door because he was going to junkyards and buying up all these airbag explosive elements. And they thought he might be a terrorist. So it was like, that was really interesting too. But, it's such a time sink that, it's also a a tricky addiction to fall into. So my bottom line is I'm a very mixed bag. I think like any content, it takes a certain level of skill and presence and maybe training to deliver a good product. And I'm still a skim the text, get the essence, suffer the video only when it's the best choice or the only choice. So I think it's terrible to do it poorly. That's my not to be too negative, bottom line.
Do other people have why video comment?
There's also what's called interactive video, where if you have if you're doing live streaming, at the same time you can have the chat going on like we're having here in Zoom. You can have a chat going and people can talk back and forth and ask questions, whoever the host is.
Speaking of that, Darrin, if you could post to the chat your sheet, the Google sheet.
Yeah, sure.
Not the link, but the actual content. Can you just copy and paste that? I can do it if that's right.
Why don't you go ahead and take the reins there, Adam, since you have it open.
Yeah.
You know, let me, excuse me, jump in then.
Please.
So we covered a lot there. That's a lot to unpack, and I think we'll get to a lot of it. But why video overall? Number one reason is it's science, it's physiology, images, and sound is the way as a species we've experienced the world. So that is number one, the number one reason why it is the most effective medium of communicating information. There's a great statistic, which is the brain processes video, or the way we see the world, 60,000 times faster than it can process text. So, you know, it's just native to how we're wired, number one. Number two, and Martin, you touched on this, is that, you know, we see, as we're driving down the street, we see a sign for a contractor in the yard, or we see a logo we see the Coca-Cola logo on a bottle. Well, all these things can have the opportunity to give us feeling. These branding have an opportunity to give us feeling. But if we don't know that contractor and we haven't seen him, we haven't heard him talk and seen his work, or learned anything about him, let's say via video or in person, then we have no feeling associated with that brand. And so what video can do is essentially give you an emotional connection to the person, to what they do, to what they create. And that's the most valuable part of it. And do you know why it's the most valuable part of it? It's because buying, as most of us know, is an emotional decision. We want that car. Now we just have to go find the deal and all the features and, you know, all the reasons we you know, logically justify why we can make that purchase. And so I think what's most interesting about video is that it allows us to make that emotional connection and often, you know, tell a story which makes us feel a certain way about a person and or a brand. So that's, for me, the why video.
Darrin, could you give us an example, maybe from one of your videos that you could show us that gives us a sense of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, have you had much luck showing videos?
Yeah, if you, there's a couple different ways to do it. I can share my screen. Yep, I think the sound will come through. Or you could share your screen if you're comfortable with it, and then the sound from your machine should come through in Zoom.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let me share a link with you, and you go ahead and keep control of everything, and let's do it that way.
We've definitely had issues. It's not easy, and this is actually part of the story about why video. It's like oh my
Yeah.
God, video. Like there's definitely a bunch of problems that we've had. We were doing our class in Rwanda this week, and I wanted them to listen to a song from the Music Man. I found on their machine, we control their machine by remote control, and we found the YouTube link, we played it, and for some reason the sound didn't work. Who knows why? But there's just a lot of things that can go wrong. The worst horror story of this was a week before a wedding, a Zoom wedding during COVID. I was asked to be the Zoom master of this Zoom director.
I got it.
And so it was during COVID. I had diabetes. I couldn't go to these people were doing this in their house, and I couldn't go to their house. It wasn't safe. And so I ran it from my machine with remote control, and it turned out that it didn't work very well. Because usually I do remote control every day of my life, constantly, with very, very few problems. But this was a serious problem because the effect of remote control introduced a time delay that normally is not significant, but with video became so. So video is very demanding.
Yeah, so you can try this. If it doesn't work, people can go and look at
who's doing this?
any video and see.
Yeah.
Steve, are you doing this?
Yes.
All right, see if you got the sound to work.
I think I put it on. Should be all right.
Go ahead and run it. Let's see.
That's how we started. Honest to God, first 5 years in business. A lady called me in to install a microwave. She says, I'm sure you probably never come out for this. Well, we did. We installed the microwave. And 2 years later, we basically built her a new house. I'm Mike Handrahan, the president and owner of Michael Handrahan Remodeling Incorporated, located in Hingham, Massachusetts, where we have been for the past 32 years. First thing I say to the people is go on our website. You've got a little bit of history. You've got a little bit of customer experience from that.
My grandparents hired Mike to redo one of their bathrooms. And then my parents hired him and my grandparents, and then my parents redid their house and had Mike do all that. My aunt redid her house. And then ultimately we redid our house.
We do every job from little small, change out a shelf in a closet up to a multi-million-dollar custom home, everything in between. We've always prided ourselves on that. We always will. No job too small. We specialize in windows, bathroom redos, kitchen redos, closets, pretty much anything you can think of, we will take care of.
I mean, I think Mike is brilliant at what he does. And the team that he comes with is also unbelievable.
Yeah, I think we pretty much lost the audio there.
That's interesting.
Might just be that where it's coming off of. Steve just muted himself, so we can't hear it.
Steve?
Yep.
Generally, what you need to do is when you share a video, you have to share the audio.
I thought it was already on.
Well, if you mute yourself and it's coming through your speaker, and then we can't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But if when you share a video, when you do a share of a video, what it will do is
I'm sorry. So you didn't hear?
Steve, that's all right. But here, this is a really good learning experience. We're a learning organization. Let's figure out what this is all about. This is a Zoom issue. Steve Eisenberg, can you walk us through what we need to do in a situation like this?
Sure. You go to share.
Yep.
And then when you do share, it says you pick what you want. And on the bottom on the right, it says share video or share, right? Don't hit the share button yet. On the left, it says share computer sound.
Yep.
I see
You
that.
see share computer sound?
And
Yep.
that gives it its own channel, Steve.
Say it again, please.
And if you mute yourself, you don't.
That's right, because it's taking the sound from the computer as opposed to.
That's so cool. Okay, Steve.
It seems to merge together the computer sound that would come out of the speakers along with what your microphone picks up.
Okay, so Steve, let's run it again. What I'd like you to do, Steve Provost,
Yep.
is go and run it, but do what Steve Eisenberg just said, and then mute yourself, and let's see if this works.
All right. I've got that all set. That half of the video set where I'm sharing the sound as well. I'm going to try to mute myself as soon as I start to play.
That's how we started, honest to God. First 5 years in business. A lady called me in to install a microwave. She says, oh, I'm sure you probably never come out for this. Well, we did. We installed the microwave, and 2 years later, we basically built her a new house. I'm Mike Handrahan, the president and owner of Michael Handrahan Remodeling Incorporated, located in Hingham, Massachusetts, where we have been for the past 32 years. First thing I say to the people is, go on our website. You'll get a little bit of history. You'll get a little bit of customer experience from that.
My grandparents hired Mike to redo one of their bathrooms, and then my parents hired him, and my grandparents, and then my parents redid their house and had Mike do all of that. My aunt redid her house, and then ultimately we redid our house.
We do every job from little small, change out a shelf in a closet up to a multi-million-dollar custom home, everything in between. We've always prided ourselves on that. We always will. There's no job too small. We specialize in windows, bathroom redos, kitchen redos, closets, pretty much anything you can think of, we will take care of.
I mean, I think Mike is brilliant at what he does. And the team that he comes with is also unbelievable. From his subcontractors to his team of vendors. They would come here and show me things. I could go and look at different things. I felt like there was such a support system for me making my decisions and for ultimately everything getting done.
We have our own custom mill workshop where we can replicate moldings. We do any kind of built-in, from kitchen cabinets down to a little small vanity, mantles, pretty much anything that can be made, we can make in our shop. From custom decks, high-end decks, to railings, to any sort of outdoor living space. We do it ourselves, knowing when we're gonna need it, we'll have it ready for us.
I've never done anything like this before, and so having him come in and give, you know, solid 30+ years of experience, offer that into our project, that was invaluable.
The greatest satisfaction being in business over 30 years is being able to please people. Not only that, but coming back and pleasing their children, in some cases, their children. If we can do that, I find itself that we've made a success and a stamp in our industry.
Mike and the project and everything in one word, professional.
Yeah, so I think
I would conclude from that that muting only turns off the person who's sharing's microphone, but the share sound continues.
Exactly.
I also found on my end in the sharing menu, I could mute Steve's share of the sound if I didn't care to hear it.
Interesting. Okay, good. Well, that worked very well. Darrin, how did you make this video? Like, how did you find this woman, and how did you coach this guy? Like, what was that all like?
Yeah, so, you know, I think that's a good way to sort of segue into process. Well, first of all, that's the first video that I made when I opened up the doors 8 years ago. And that video is still being used today. In fact, when my home was being remodeled by Michael in 2014, very tail end, one of his senior fine carpenters said to me, you know, I watched that video and it's why I joined the company. So I was like, good, nice to know. Nice to know. Yeah, so process. So we do what's called a discovery. And this is me asking about 15 or 20 questions. What are your aspirational goals? 3 to 5 years, the big hairy ass goals, pardon my French. You know, what are your 18 to 12 month goals? What are your marketing goals? What has worked with you in marketing in the past? Where have you failed? And then sort of down the line into nitty gritty, who are your competitors? And do your competitors have video, and how are they marketing? And part of this, I want to know what their knowledge is, but I've already done the due diligence. I've read all their website. I've looked at all their competitors. And then I'm asking, well, who is your target audience? You know, who is your ideal client? If you could fire 80% of your clients and take that 20% and replicate it, and it would represent the same amount of money, well, might be a good idea to do that. So finding out who that ideal client is, who that target audience is, And then asking the question, okay, there's this video you think you want. Where is your ideal client going to watch that video? Is it going to be on your website? Is it going to be on social media? What is their next click going to be? What is their next action? Are they going to pick up the phone? Are they going to fill out your contact us form? What are they going to do, and how does that help you achieve one of your business goals? So that's sort of the process in terms of how do we figure out what we're going to say and who's going to be on camera. Well, that's part of meeting with Mike, meeting with his team and saying, you know, who's your ideal client and who would be great on camera and who do you have a great relationship with? And, oh, we should get so-and-so, she'd be fantastic. And so we then, as a producer, reach out with some forewarning from my client and say, I'm the writer-producer. Mike would be honored if you'd allow us into your home for a low impact shoot. We'd really love to capture the beauty of your home and what you've been able to realize and really highlight how Mike has been able to help you do that and tell a little bit more of his story. And so then otherwise what I'm doing is I'm then writing a line of questioning, which essentially is going to draw out that which the target audience needs to hear so that their questions, concerns, objections are all answered within the course of the arc of whatever story that we're telling. Does that make sense?
One of the questions was, does he have good subcontractors? Because that was actually my favorite part of the video. Anyone who's ever done a project like this knows that that's the core issue. If it's all the guy who shows up and is supposed to put in the door, if he doesn't show up, you're just toast. And so knowing that this guy has a whole, for me, the most impressive selling point of this business was, this is a guy who knows how to network with his vendors and knows how to network with his subcontractors, and they actually support each other and make the customer feel supported. I thought that came through very, very effectively.
Good. Glad to hear that. I haven't heard that takeaway before.
I've got a question about length. Steve didn't always scroll down, so I didn't catch how long the video was per se. I think it was maybe 3 minutes long or something like that. I've run across a few people, one person in particular who's a marketing consultant, not a videographer, who emphatically made the point that she felt videos should be basically no longer than 45 seconds. Now, maybe this is YouTube versus one's own marketing. And I found that, not to be super pessimistic here, totally in line with the lack of attention span that I see elsewhere. But also in line with, people are busy and get to the point. And maybe one has, if one has 15 points to make, maybe you make 15 little videos versus that video, which had, multiple points to make, which was, 2 or 3 minutes long, but beautifully produced. So Darrin, I'm just curious where you come on that front, duration and attention span and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Martin. And there is no one answer because it does depend upon what platform. Is it being viewed on your website? Is it being viewed on Amazon on a product page? Is it being viewed on social media? And maybe it's only 15 seconds designed to get you off social media and to the website where you're either going to buy that product or you want to learn more about the breadth and quality of the services that are provided. So there are, for as many instances of any different type of marketing video, there are as many answers. Yes, there are sort of rules around, oh, well, if you're here on this platform, we see the best performance of this time period here. And those are metrics that you can dig into, per vertical and based on the type of video. But there are people who will go and watch a half an hour of video. It just depends on what they're trying to get out of it. If they're just surfing the web, trying to figure out whether they like what they see and they trust that particular service provider, well, kind of feels like we won over Adam to a certain degree on that, just with that video there. So yeah, what are we trying to do with the video really dictates how long it needs to be, what does the ideal client need to hear, and where is the video going to be shown? Is its purpose to have you do something where it is being shown or to get you someplace else?
Other comments or thoughts?
Oh, Adam, may I say a word?
Please, I just want to also give people a heads up that I have to step away from the camera, but I am listening and participating. So, but I'll be away from the camera for a little bit. Thanks. Go ahead, Tom.
So in terms of Martin's question, 45 seconds, 3 minutes. See, the production to me, it's, you know, it was well done. If it's well done, then 3 minutes may feel like 45 seconds. If it's 3 minutes and it's well done, I want the 30 minutes that we talked about. So time, you know, yeah, sure, we're all kind of, you know, at a fast pace these days. But I think with the video being such a well done video, it kind of captured me to continue to see more about the quality work that Mike was doing. And I think that was the goal that I'm sure Mike and Darrin had when they began the video.
I personally was looking at the video too myself, and some of the rooms that was shown in the video, such as the bedroom, how, you know, how it kind of, he got the right angle in the video to show that they had the other room added on to it, as well as the living room, and just everything was beautifully done. The shots were perfectly aligned and really nicely. I was really impressed by the video itself, because sometime in the near future, Mike and I really want to get a house someplace, and we'd like to have the house looking something like the house that was shown in the video.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you for the compliments. It's all very kind. And, you know, I look at that video now, and there are shots in there that would never make it in anymore. And that's just because I was less experienced as an editor, and, you know, they're not that they're bad shots, just maybe the camera didn't go as smoothly as it could have on that take, or, you know, things like that. But yeah, I mean, what was I going to say? I was going to say that, you know, when we talk about time, when we talk about intent, Martin has made the complaint, and rightly so, that, you know, there's just so much out there that is video, right? I mean, anybody can get on their cell phone or sit here and, you know, talk to the lens, and you got to watch them if you want to on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and everybody's opinion, and it just, at a certain point, that is all just noise. Unless you're invested in that person, what they believe, do they believe the same thing you believe? Are they telling you valuable information that you need? Well, that is what is going to drive your interest. And so, is there a bunch of garbage out there? Absolutely. But once, you know, person's garbage is another person's treasure. So, you know, that's the deal. That's what's so both daunting and incredibly exciting about what I do, because my big problem is I can do anything. And I'm excited about it, because every new goal that the business owner has, you know, represents a new challenge for me, and I have to learn their business, you know, and I have to figure out who they're talking to and what they need to hear. And I just love that. I love that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I will take someone who has I think it's often referred to as they're in the equivalent of a prison cell, you know, a flat background, terrible lighting. But if they're giving me the information I'm hunting for, you know, I'm the fan, because that's mainly, you know, I'm very mission oriented. So that's mainly my reason for looking around the internet. once in a while, I'm looking for entertaining thing, or the cast of Friends, where are they now? That sort of drivel. But most of the time, I'm landing on usually YouTube from a Google search for some technical issue or some idea I have that maybe I can help a client if only this thing existed somewhere. So yeah, from production, I'll notice production values. I have a experience in community theater, so I certainly notice production, and I can also notice production value that's trying to manipulate me. Because there's umpteen number of videos out there that are incredibly vague about the benefits of this or that supplement or this or that product, but the ultimate goal is to make me click on some link where there's more vague stuff, and then I buy this thing for $1,000. So I'm very cognizant of things that are vague and or trying to manipulate me. So I get suspicious if I see too much production value and almost no content, which is different from the person who's rambling and slow to click on the next step. I'm also curious, Darrin, do you, Adam has mentioned this as well, and I experience this all the time. Do you make any particular effort to add closed captioning or a transcript? Because, Google doesn't search pictures, it searches basically text. And if I'm I'm looking for a program to open, a 2003 AppleWorks document on a modern PC, and the person might say the gem that I'm looking for, but if it ain't searchable, I'm never going to find them. Contractors in Hingham, if it could be in the title, but if it's only those two words, but maybe I want somebody who does a remodel on an outdoor deck with treated lumber and a grill. That's my Google search. He might even say that, but if it's not in some sort of text, he'll miss me because I'm craving that contract.
Yeah, you make a great point. So what you're referring to is actually a real thing. It's called video SEO. Okay, so there are a number of tools that we use to optimize video over and above what is done on a search engine optimized website or web page. And some of the tools you alluded to: closed captioning, providing a transcript, perhaps even embedding it upon the page, the opportunity to include other metadata, which could reference the grill and the pressure treated wood and all those things. So yes, there are tools available which we employ wherever possible, especially when these videos are going to live on somebody's website. And the idea is to draw them there. I think this is actually a fantastic segue into something that I was thinking about talking about at the end. But so I talked about the low-hanging fruit that no one is picking. So I will bet that everybody here in the course of doing business answers the same 5, 10, 15 questions over and over again for all of their clients all year long. And so what I think is the opportunity that too few business owners are taking advantage of something that's called a video FAQ series. And Stephen, if you want to pull up my video FAQ series and just put that in there, I can kind of walk you through the idea behind this. Yeah, there's no rush. So overall, if someone is interested in video, one of their top questions might be, well, how much does a video cost? Well, in my video FAQ series, I have a video that is, how much does a video cost? That is the title of the video. That is the title of the page. So historically, and when I first put that video out, probably, 7 years ago, that video was #1 on that page for like 3 or 4 years. until every other company in Boston started figuring out what I was doing and started creating their own answers to questions. Another one that still ranks today, like if you were to ask your phone, hey Siri, how do I prove return on investment for video production? Sorry. Hey Siri, how do I prove return on investment for video production? So that, interestingly, you're not going to really be able to see this probably, but I get the #1 spot there when you ask your phone that question. And that links directly back to the page, which is the video of how do I prove ROI for video production.
Excuse me, Darrin.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you've got a typo on this first frame of the video.
That'll happen. What is it?
Visibility. It's not, the second vowel should be, I believe, an I, not an A.
Well, you know what? I'll have to look into that. Good eye.
Okay.
These are the pitfalls of being a solopreneur.
It's also the pitfall of doing anything with Martin, because Martin sees everything.
Well, that just means I'm going to have to subcontract Martin. That's all.
Exactly. I recommend it.
It's also a fault in the video.
Right.
Well, it's easy to be an editor. It's hard to be an author, you know.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the bottom line here is that people are out there doing exactly what you were talking about, Martin. They're searching for answers to their questions. And another link that I happened to put into the document, which has been the Google document, which is, I believe, now in the chat, is an article I wrote on LinkedIn Pulse called How Voice Search Leads to Sales. And that really ties in this whole idea. And to give you a little backstory on the idea of a video FAQ series, is that way back in 2012, when Google released Hummingbird, Hummingbird was the beginning of context, in that we're starting to talk about Google beginning to write an algorithm that would understand the association between multiple words. And when that went online and I started to see how that was working, the bells went off for me and I said, oh, this is the beginning of voice search. So at that point we had voice recognition, but voice search was clearly the next thing down the line. So I also obviously recognize the benefit of what we call the long tail search, which is when we use more than 3 words to do a search. And in many times now we use natural language, right? And we ask Google, we ask Siri, we ask Cortana, whoever it may be, to answer a question for us. That's where we are today. So my larger point here is that if you're answering all these questions and none of your competitors are answering these questions on a per page with video basis, once you release them, over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months, you could absolutely become the authority in your niche by virtue of having this, what is essentially a learning library, or as I refer to it, the video FAQ series. Questions?
I'm trying to look at that Google document and I'm getting access denied. You have to request access.
Sorry about that. I tried to make that a public share.
Okay.
We'll put it in the, we'll put the whole thing with all the links in the chat.
Okay.
Copy. Take a look at the chat and see if it's already there.
Oh.
Adam was threatening to do that earlier.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Yes, if I scroll down, I now realize that that's part of the content.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay,
so
sorry
it
about
is. It is there. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so it's there under video FAQ series. But I mean, is that clear? Am I being clear about how the video FAQ series works, technically or otherwise?
Oh, well, it's you know, almost every description of video, including yours about the FAQ, it just seems like an extension of sensible stuff to do. You know, ideally one should have an FAQ, you know, why would you hire me? How am I different from other people? What are my policies? And, you know, if done well, you know, if I did that in video, hopefully people would, since in my case, my personality is a big part of interacting with me, you know, hopefully I would shine, not come across as someone you wouldn't want to work with. So it just seems logical, a logical extension. Everything I've seen about video and business marketing, to me, just is a reasonable and hopefully well done, you know, extension of what one might write about one's business.
Yeah, well, good point. And, you know, I mean, you being a very articulate person, Martin, I think it's so funny how often, and just watching you here, some of the most captivating people on video, oh, they just don't think they're any good. They couldn't possibly shine. And what it comes down to is, yeah, charisma plays a part, but if you're knowledgeable and you're articulate, that goes a heck of a long way, you know? And the other part of it is, at the end of the day, who do we choose to do business with? We choose to do business with, obviously, those people we like, know, and trust, but even beyond that, we tend to want to do business, our most important business, with people who believe what we believe, who perhaps think like we think, or purposefully we choose to do business with somebody who thinks completely different than us, but still believes what we believe, right? It's that whole thing about surround yourself.
Oh, sure, having a
people smarter
contrasting
than
person
you.
who still shares some fundamental mission with you. But
Yeah.
Past few days, I've had numerous situations where second pair of eyes, you know, on whatever we were working on was a huge asset. You know, whether it's detail or big picture or, you know, spelling and grammar versus mission.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a smart person who can see that someone who's not identical to them, but complementary, you know, good partner in that sense is a valuable asset.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I
kind
would
of.
want to add. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's fine. What were you going to say, Adam?
I wanted to say that one of my favorite political tactics was Abraham Lincoln. At 10 o'clock in the morning in the East Room of the White House, he invited anyone who wanted to come and talk with him. Anyone. It drove the Secret Service crazy, I'm sure. But any person could come into the East Room and come up to him and say, "Mr. President, I think you're handling the war terribly," or whatever. And he referred this to him as his public opinion baths.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. How I think about this for myself is that I am this perfect kind of dangerous where I know I can do every part of the job that I would ask anybody else to do, but I have no interest in doing any of them. I just know what it looks like and what it sounds like, and I hire the people who have the expertise in whatever area we're in, and I say, get me here, you know, get me where I want to go, where we need to land. And that's what we do. We sit down and we work together. And, you know, sometimes the cameraman will show me a frame and I'll say, you know, that's great, but humor me. Let's walk over 18 inches and pan slightly to the left. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right, that's it. I'm like, oh, good. I don't always have to be right, but once in a while I get to be lucky too, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to go in any direction you want. I mean, there are any number of things that I could talk about.
I would love to see more videos from your oeuvre. In particular, if your feeling is that this video would not have made the cut or would have ended up on the cutting room floor, I'm curious about what your newer videos are like and what changes you made and how you moved into a different Picasso period.
And along those lines, I'm curious about what do you feel does not belong on video, apart from obviously a spouting, ranting, offensive person.
Okay, so I'll answer that one first, Martin. What doesn't belong there is what doesn't need to be there. If it can be better expressed elsewhere, then it doesn't belong there.
You mean like
You know?
dense amounts of information, PowerPoints with 50 bullets per slide, that sort of, analysis of exactly how the vaccine works, down to the DNA level?
Well, I mean, that's going to have value for people invested in those conversations, but just I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but there are oftentimes things that are expressed in video, not generally on a marketing level necessarily, but there are sometimes people to say, oh, we're going to make a video about this. And it's like, well, maybe that isn't the best way to express that,
That comes back to the why question,
Yeah.
why are we doing this?
Right. Yeah. And so if it's informational, that's one thing. So another bar for me is, well, I ask the client, to answer all these questions. One is, well, what's the purpose of the video? And they have to be able to answer that. And then here's the tough one. What is the value to the viewer? Right. So to your point, there has to be value to the viewer, because if there's value to the viewer and it helps you, it fulfills the purpose, those are oftentimes mirrors of each other. And if you're able to accomplish both those, most likely you are then able to take steps forward in achieving a specific business goal. That makes sense?
Is it a sheet that you hand to the customer?
No, I've
do you
tried
ask them,
that.
like in person or?
Yeah, in person. Yeah, or these days on a Zoom. And a lot of times it's not just an individual. A lot of times it'll be a round table, depending on who the stakeholders are. And it's delving in deep. And so often what happens is I'm contacted by somebody who's doing the footwork for the decision maker. And we get to a certain point and they just can't answer questions. So I'm like, well, I would really like to continue this with you, but I think we're going to get to a point where the boss is going to ask you to answer questions, and just the way you're not able to answer my questions, you're not going to be able to answer his questions. So we need to get all three of us in the same room, get on the same
Bill.
page, and find out if it
Dinner's
makes
ready.
sense to keep talking. So
Bill,
that's
you ready for dinner? It's on the
that's my
table.
thought.
Come get it when it's hot.
What are you serving, Adam?
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, what are you serving, Adam?
Seems a little unfair, just making me hungry now. Yeah, so good stuff.
Darrin, you may not be aware, but this used to be an in-person meeting with a potluck. So one of the running gags is, where's that pizza add-on for Zoom?
Right, exactly. No, I had heard a little bit about the history of that, but if it, I don't know. I can't complain. I have beef bourguignon downstairs simmering.
Oh, well, excuse us.
Well, I make it in bulk on Sundays because there are going to be nights like these. So let's go in a completely different direction. Adam, you were asking about other areas that I'm excited about. One of the things that I'm most passionate about, where I'm incredibly energetic and bring a lot of preliminary work, but also really thrive in the moment, is in event video. And what I mean by that is like conference and expo type video, where, and I'll just paint the picture for you. So my largest client is called NAFSA. They're the Association of International Educators, and they're based in Washington, DC. They are the leaders in the world in the international education space, sort of being there for everybody who surrounds international education, both those institutions nationwide who are trying to send students abroad and who are also trying to, from around the world, bring students to their institutions, and anybody who serves them, whether it's people helping with the visa processes, or insurance, or the software programs, or what's the social media program they should be working on when they're trying to get the students interested in their program. So they touch every part of it, and they have an international conference annually in the States in a different city every year, which draws anywhere between 9,000 and 12,000 people. And so what I do for them historically is, and they found me here in Boston in 2015, is I go in to whatever conference center we're in. 2019, it was Washington, D.C., and they give me a big room within the conference center. I build a black box, almost like a black box theater for 2 different branded talk shows. I built another set where I can do single person interviews where they're doing like I am now. They're talking to the camera and they can actually see the interviewer's face on a teleprompter in front of the lens. And so you can have this interesting, it's called an interroprompter kind of thing. And so that's going on in the studio for 4.5 days straight, all these different either talk shows or individual interviews. Meanwhile, I'm out in the field, inside the expo hall or out on the street, doing all kinds of interview-based materials, developing videos on answering the question, well, what is the value of attending? What is the value of membership? What is the value of exhibiting? What is the value of sponsorship? What is the number one reason here? Oh, networking. What is the value of networking? And those might all be different videos. And over, let's say, 3 or 4 years, we might choose to do those in rotation and keep refreshing them, right? So it's interesting because I go in and we're also doing what are called same day edits, where the very first day we're there after the studio's been set up, we're out going and building a shot list or shooting literally from out in Washington, D.C. all the way inside the conference center. And then we pick up the next morning at 8:30 a.m. We have the CEO. They're giving a welcome video, and that is edited and released by noon the same day. And then we might do one of those other videos throughout the week, or go visit the Career Center and highlight that this year, or the bookshop. And then at the end of the week, we're going to do a highlight video where we kind of recap everything that happens, and then complete that by Thursday and roll it out on Friday morning as things are wrapping up by midday. So yeah, I guess if I was going to say, oh, let's look at something. Let's see. Steve Eisenberg. Oh no, Steve Provost.
Yeah.
Stephen, can you pull up the link for yourself of the pardon me for not being ready with this immediately. Event generated work product. It's Artie Media channel 5.wistia.
Can I get it through your website?
No, because this is hidden. It's in the chat. Event generated work product. There's a link to it. If you look in the chat, it
let me see if I can find it here.
Yeah, sure.
Generated work chat. Video, brand video.
Event generated work product. It's sort of at the very end of the first post.
You
know what he's talking about?
United States National Station.
He's making video movies, making movies and advertising.
Yeah.
Work product, here it is. Okay, a copy.
Nice people.
And bring it over to the share.
Where's on the screen?
Why is it taking so long for?
Which?
A minute. Hold on.
You missed me?
I do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Adam, could you please mute?
Okay,
Yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, perfect. That's great, Stephen. So So a couple of the videos, or a few of the videos there at the top, are examples of what I just talked about. Like, so the NAFSA, the one at the top is a highlight video, which kind of recaps the whole week. The one after that is a conference networking video that was shot and edited same day in Philadelphia. The conference expo hall experience video, I'm pretty sure that was DC. And then if you look at the branded talk shows, you could see, you kind of scroll through some familiar faces there that, excuse me, I've had in the studio. Chef Jose Andres, Shankar Vedantam, Doris Kearns Goodwin, who was an absolute sweetheart, as well as a national treasure. Terry Gross, much the same. She was wonderful. Bill Nye,
Oh,
Kareem
Abigail
Abdul-Jabbar.
Disney.
Yeah, yeah, and she was great. She's wonderful.
She's the granddaughter of Walt Disney.
Yes, and she's also a filmmaker in her own right, who's been lauded. Yeah. So anyway, these are the types of things that get me excited in that space. Other thought leaders: Brian Stevenson, who you may know as a civil rights lawyer and activist. And then these are more industry specific here when we get into the worldview, to people who have some high visibility in the international education and or political spheres that might cross over. And then once we get down into some of the other things, which are animation samples, those are derivations of different brandings that might have to do with particular programs or initiatives that are happening in the international education space.
Here's a video that Darrin requested that be played.
This is the event that puts together and brings together all the people that I want to meet.
One single place, one single trip, you're able to meet people from all over the world.
You will meet new people, you will network.
The plenaries are always top-notch.
Incredible sessions.
The organization is top level. I've never been to something this massive.
It's a genuine global event.
You see so many people involved in this international education field.
What keeps me coming back are the people.
That one-on-one conversation that you don't really have, rather than online, you really get to experience that here.
The partnerships that we develop here and bring it back to our campus to benefit our students.
I'm looking forward to using the material that I've gained and learned to go back and help my institution become a better advocate for international education.
It's the best place for you to gather information about what's going on around the world in international education.
It's a really enlightening opportunity.
The ability to engage with NAFSA, to become a volunteer, to become a leader within the field.
Really like a family right now. I mean, you come back every year and meet your friends, your colleagues. This is really like a family. You cannot miss NAFSA conference. You have to be here.
Thanks, Stephen.
So everyone, welcome back, everybody. We're glad to have you with us for the Boston Network Users Group monthly meeting. And today, just for those who have joined us lately, just joined us, our speaker guest tonight is Darrin Fitzgerald, who is a avid, I don't know if it's avid or I guess he's a great filmmaker, I guess, that I'm beginning to look up to here in my own stuff that I do. And we're going to rejoin him and have a great night and see what else he has to share with us. Darrin?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. That's very kind. Yeah, I guess what I love about these types of videos, these event types of videos, in a way, they're kind of like, we get to make these little films. They're never perfect, and they're not news. You know, they're kind of like this hybrid of, we have to go out there and we got to make that video today. And we've got to film it, and I've got to write all the questions to ask all the people to get all the interesting responses. And I could give it to my editor and say, okay, you know what this looks like. We all know what this looks like, what it sounds like. I definitely want to hear from this person, this person, this person, and this person on these things, because I've made all my notations. Here we are, go, bang, do it. And let's see if we can't release it by 4 o'clock after we finish filming it too. So it's an interesting challenge, but it's exciting and it's fun, you know. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Yeah, I was going to say, Stephen, why don't we watch another one of the live and virtual events tab? Like, if you went to that tab and went back.
Darrin?
Yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
Okay. I noticed that on your videos, you don't just have a static camera. You have a camera that moves, kind of moves along with, or moves across. How do you accomplish that?
Yeah, quite a number of different tools that we'll use. So there is something that's called a steady cam, and you would know it from its origins of the Rocky going up and down.
That's something you strap on yourself and you walk with it, and it keeps the camera steady as you're walking.
Yeah,
what I've noticed is that as a person is talking, you see the view kind of going like this. As
from side to side. Yeah. So sometimes that is simply putting the, sometimes that could be putting the camera on what's called a slider, or sometimes that can also be a steady cam. Somebody simply, you know, moving slightly with the steady cam as a person's talking. But yeah, I mean, those are all different tools, and the purpose, excuse me, is to, with any of movement in cameras, to create and maintain visual interest. And when you have moments of stillness, you're cleansing the palate or earning a pause or emphasizing.
Do you, when you travel to some of these, like these big events, like this conference you had, do you actually bring like editing equipment with you? I mean, are you just using a computer, a personal computer, or do you have something like set up in a van or some kind of, you know, vehicle that you can get from place to place?
Yeah, so it's a little different than what you might be used to in broadcasts, which is more like, oh, there's a truck outside and they're mixing a live feed and they've got their multiple cameras and their satellite link and all that. So yeah, literally, I will bring with me a director of photography who actually ends up being my editor. And so he will be, after the first day of filming and sort of building everybody's shot list with them, he will be in the chair essentially by 10 a.m. that first day and editing pretty much throughout the week on all these different same day edits, as we call them, or same day deliverables.
Do you use just like one camera, several cameras? Do you use something like a TriCaster so you can switch between them?
So I would literally have as many as 6 camera operators going out and capturing all different areas of whatever we're filming. And I already know what journey I'm going to take people on, and my director of photography, who's going to edit, has already sort of given each camera operator, here's what I want you to get. Go stage a bunch of people hugging, right? or go out, send somebody out in the field. You got to go get the Washington Monument. You got to get the Lincoln Memorial. You got to do this, you got to do that. And you got to get the outside of the building. I want a moving shot into the building. I want a moving shot into the expo hall. I want you to get the ribbon being cut. I've got the shot list. So I know everything that we're going to get. And then it's not a switcher. It's literally taking all those massive amounts of footage and, saying to each camera operator, once you've got the shot, make sure you've got a safety and then move on to the next shot, because we can't look through a ton of footage. And then my editor is actually taking all the footage from all those different camera ops and putting them, in a file structure. So they're all arranged. So we know exactly where they are. And then he's building out what we call timelines. He's laying it all down, looking at all the footage, dragging the best clips up to the next level and condensing that, and just condensing and condensing and condensing until we have sequences. And then we're bringing those in, and then we're mixing in the live action interview that I'm doing, right? And so all that's being done on a computer in an editing, nonlinear editing software program. What you're talking about when you get into live switching, that is sort of the broadcast TV world, and or what we've now become a little more used to, which is sort of the virtual live streams or virtual conferences, all that sort of thing. That's where some of that type of technology comes into play.
So
Question
Darrin, let
for
me
you.
ask.
I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
So let me ask you the $1 million question. And I'm pretty sure Steve, the other Steven as well. What program are you using for your editing? And because I'd like to know, but what program are you using to edit, and what type of, are you using a PC or Apple to do it with, or?
Yeah, so in general, most commonly we use the Adobe Creative Cloud. So Premiere Pro for the editing, some work that I do in advance to create graphics, I would tend to do that in After Effects, though there are people on my team for other jobs that may work in DaVinci Pro. As to terms of Apple or PC, the Creative Cloud works across both those platforms seamlessly. I've always been an Apple guy, so that's where I like to be. So it's really all over the board. But in the live experience, my director of photography / editor is just bringing his big, heavy powered laptop and a number of external drives. And
Darrin?
Why are you using you say use Apple? Why do you use Apple as opposed to Windows machines?
That's just been my experience. I literally was one of those kids in 1984 on the Apple II in high school. So, that's where I started out. And, when I got to New York and I was there, I was learning desktop publishing. Everything was on, a Mac. And with the advent of obviously the iPhones and the iPads, I just never walked away, and I've always enjoyed the experience. As I said, because we can work across platform when we're using the Adobe Creative Cloud suite of apps, whether it's Apple or PC is rarely a divisive issue anymore.
Darrin?
Can I ask a question about backups?
Sure.
So when you use the Adobe Creative Cloud, do you keep a copy of all your work locally, or do you just depend on them to take care of it for you?
I don't use the Creative Cloud's, any of their storage. No, I have other solutions, both locally and in the cloud. I have a kind of an intricate web of redundancy, so I'm pretty well covered without having to bother with relying upon their storage in the cloud.
Darrin?
Thank you.
Yes.
Aside from you having multiple camera operators, it sounds like, you're traveling light is a lot like what Rick Steves does on his TV shows. he only travels with two people, a sound man and the photographer. And they carry, they tote all their own luggage. And he makes a big deal about how he travels light.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm behind that kind of thinking. And also I'm hiring local beyond two people. I'm bringing my director of photography who is doubling as an editor, and I'm bringing someone who starts out as a line producer and is out there vetting and finding my crew in whatever city we're going to be in. And that line producer becomes an assistant director for me, so that by the time everything is set up and the studio is up and running, if I am not out in the field creating as an interviewer and or as a director of scripted materials that I may have written, then I am literally just pretending my studio is the Four Seasons Hotel, and inviting in whatever thought leader, heads of state, or whoever may be sitting down for an interview and getting them comfortable, introducing them to the interviewer if they have not met them, getting those two people into an organic conversation while we put our finishing touches on the lighting and sound. And so I really try to create this experience there. But yeah, in terms of going light, it's all about hiring local, always making sure that we have diversity on our crew, and men and women, because whenever you have women on a crew, it changes the dynamic. It makes it so much more professional. There's no horsing around or boys club crap. Yeah, so it's all,
I've heard that phrase
all
before in
connected.
that context.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all kind of connected.
Could you show us one of these interviews?
You're welcome. Yeah, we can pull one of them up.
Just briefly. I'd just like to get.
Yeah.
I think it helps understand what you're saying when you talk about these production values. So it'd just be helpful.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
Darrin,
Sure.
You mentioned that you deal with governments.
Yeah, I'm really just dealing with whoever my client has brought in, who may be a current or former head of state. That's been a circumstance that's happened in the past. Yeah.
How about the Abigail Disney?
You know what? I will. The only reason, you're welcome to go back and watch it anytime you want. I would say, why don't you look at Terry Gross?
Yeah,
because I liked the production value, the look that we had in LA.
Greetings from NAFSA 2018. This is Up Close with Terry Gross. I'm Bonnie Bissonnette, a member of the NAFSA Board of Directors, also the Director of Education Abroad and International Safety for the Center for Global Education Initiatives at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. Terry Gross is the long-running host and co-executive producer of Fresh Air on National Public Radio. With her distinct conversational interviewing style, Terry can get her guests, who range from politicians to cultural icons, to reveal personal insights and candid truths about themselves and issues impacting the world. Since 1987, WHYY-FM, a public radio station based in Philadelphia, has produced a daily 1-hour national edition of Fresh Air. The program is broadcast on nearly 600 stations, and it became the first non-drive time show in public radio history to reach more than 5 million listeners a week. Fresh Air with Terry Gross has received numerous awards, including the Peabody Award in 1994. Terry is also the author of All I Did Was Ask, Conversations with Writers, Actors, Musicians, and Artists, It's a real pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. Pleasure
Thank
to be
you
here.
for coming in. So this is the NAFSA conference. We're a group of international educators who specialize and focus on communications, cross-cultural interactions, etc. And we tend to do that from our offices at institutions of higher education in the United States and around the world, but it relies a lot on face-to-face communications to foster that type of communication. And what I think is fascinating is that you do what we do, but really successfully from a studio in Philadelphia with people that aren't even with you, people that you can't see, yet you're able to build a bond of communication. Could you share with us some ways that you do that? And do you think maybe it's easier for the communication when you're not in the same space?
Sometimes I think it might be easier when we're not in the same space because people tend to judge each other by how they look. So that element of, like, say, the interviewer judging me or me judging them based on a haircut or a jacket is eliminated. And radio is pure sound, and when I interview somebody long distance, that's pure sound too. So there's no nods or winks or nudges that we are doing to communicate with each other, me and my guest. Everything that the guest wants to communicate with me, they have to do through their voice.
And the words that they choose.
And the words that they choose. And also, since I'm not meeting the person in person, I tell them beforehand, just because they won't be able to read it on my face, that if I ask anything too personal, they should let me know and I'll move on to something else. I want them to know that I trust them to draw the line between what's public and what's private. And I don't want to censor myself and presume to know where that line is. I'd rather that they just guide me. That way I'm free to ask anything, knowing that they'll be confident in telling me, you know, that's my line.
That's amazing, because a lot of places where you probe, you know, very deeply, and a lot of times people will say things, and we often hear guests say to you, wow, I've never told anyone that before.
Yeah.
So clearly your strategy is really eliciting some terrific new information from people that have been interviewed a lot.
Well, I think one of the things you have to do as an interviewer is establish and earn a level of trust. And I learned that as an interviewee, because there's times when I've told something to someone and they've just gotten it wrong in print, or they misquoted me, or even simple things like when I got into radio, I hosted a show called Woman Power.
Yes.
And I said to the interviewer, I said, what a 70s, like, God help us, what a 70s title, Woman Power. And it came out, she hosted a show called God Help Us Woman Power.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then, you know, there's a whole part of the personality press that wants to make news by revealing something secret about the celebrity's life. A drug habit, an affair, and I'm not going in that direction.
No.
And I want my guests to know that's not where I'm heading. So you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And in fact, if I ask you anything too personal, you can just tell me, and I'm not going to push on that, because I'm going to trust you to draw your own line. So I think people can relax a little bit.
And they do.
You've told them
and
that.
I think there are plenty of examples, I think, of people who don't give interviews elsewhere, but that know that you're a trustworthy interviewer, that have agreed to come on the show. Is that right?
Well, I think another thing, like a benefit of being on the air as long as I have, is that if somebody listens to the show, they know it's not a tabloid show.
It's not a gotcha.
It's not a gotcha show. We're not there to make headlines off of your misfortunes or indiscretions.
Yep. Well, and you've had some pretty amazing interviews over the years. I know better than to ask you what's your favorite interview whatever, but is there, what has surprised you about the show and its evolution? I mean, you've been doing it for 40 years. Are there things that maybe are happening now that surprise you that maybe weren't happening 40 years ago when you started, or?
Well, one of the things, you know, politically, people who I thought of as being really on the margins when I started have kind of entered the mainstream.
Wow, yeah.
And that's been interesting to see. And it's something that's happened gradually.
Right.
Yeah, well, thanks, Stephen, for playing that. Yeah, I think it's nice, Adam, just to get a flavor of, you know, what we're trying to do in the aesthetic we're trying to create in that space. Very much trying to create a safe and comfortable space, you know, and a sense of intimacy, you know, trust.
Yeah, she comes across as a
a very real person. And seeing her, it gives it a different experience. It's an irony, but seeing her carry herself and have this conversation and just seeing what she looks like changes the experience, I think, very much.
Yeah, I would argue that it definitely enriches it, you know. And I mean, what a pleasure to meet her and, you know, to just be there and be a fly on the wall and watch them work. So that's part of the reward of what I do for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Darrin, I was wondering, apart from those issues you brought up earlier, you know, for someone who wants to make a video or pursue video as a marketing tool, you know, apart from the why are you doing this, who's the audience, you know, I think of that as any kind of a composition, whether I'm writing or picking a photograph or whatever. Are there particular things you would advise someone to do or not do? You know, the classic, you know, not wearing a lined shirt or a paisley tie. You know, back in the day, I remember back to the, you know, Nixon Kennedy debate issues on television or 5 o'clock shadow. Apart from, you know, simple technical things, you know, no, that shirt's not going to fly. Are there particular things you, you know, would advise, you know, prospects, customers, whatever, you know, maybe I'm not the right mouthpiece, you know, maybe my assistant is, you know, and you know, or maybe the simple question is, what are the most common things you run across that people like, oh my God, you better rethink that, you know, that you had to actually say something to the person?
Well, you know, I got to tell you, it really doesn't happen that often. And here's the reason why, is because once we've sort of entered into this conversation, whether it's that discovery or the next meeting, and we're starting to, you know, really establish a bond and trust, then I become the expert. And once I'm the expert, then I'm allowed to work. And when I'm allowed to work, it's very rare that there should be any sort of conflict or a hurdle that's going to present itself, because I'm in fact taking what's given to me and steering the ship, you know, in that direction without, you know, having any obstacles in the way. It's just, I think it's just the process. I mean, you know, it is the other end of the spectrum. It is that I literally send out a sheet of, here's the color palette for the brand, and I would love it if you were not wearing a striped suit and didn't have a paisley tie and weren't wearing stripes or checkers, and avoid white and avoid black, and bring something fun, maybe a brooch or a scarf, or, you know, you bring some personality to it. So it's really about enabling people and steering them in the right direction, more than it is saying, well, we just can't do that, or we don't want to do that. It's very rare that I have to say we're not gonna, or we can't do, or we won't do. And I think that's just because the process is, I just try to be, it's a present process. It's going to unfold the way it's going to unfold. And if we're partners and if it's communication, then we're rarely going to encounter conflict, if that makes sense.
If you were to advise us, we're this very old networking group. We're very small, very uncompetitive, very educationally oriented. What kind of video do you think you'd recommend for a group like ours?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think you'd have to ask yourself, who's going to take up your mantle? What do you have to share with them? What can they teach you? And that I would want to explore that conversation, and find out all the different viewpoints, so that you'd have an opportunity to resonate with that audience and attract them by virtue of possibly having somebody who fits those descriptions on either end be of interest, whether it's more people joining like yourselves, or whether it is sort of ushering in those who are going to, take up the mantle.
Well, so I think we've talked about this as a group, but we have a sense that we particularly like to reach out to the slightly younger generation. We're all aging. A lot of us are aging computer people. And we thought it'd be very nice to involve younger folks. And one of the issues that we have is that a live networking group, we usually meet in person, except for major pandemics. And when we do that, we try to actually model and teach the vital importance of face-to-face networking. But younger folks are actually reluctant to do this. Like it's hard to get them into a meeting. It's hard to get them. And I'm wondering from your standpoint, do you have some sense of how we might tell the story that would make it? I know what I would say in plain English to a young person, which is, if you're really interested in being successful in the computer business, learning how to network is a really, really valuable skill. But do you think there's a way of telling that with video, that teaching that lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there is, but that's what you want to say, and that's what you want them to hear, but they may not want to hear that message. They may want to experience the value of what it is that you're doing together. And it might be more talking about what the experience is and what the value has been over the years, as opposed to telling somebody, well, you should be here because of these 5 reasons. Does that make sense?
Well, actually, the thing I'm getting from what you're saying is what might be the right video for us would be actually to show some networking going on. I don't know if that kind of drama is part of your repertoire, but I was thinking that one of the things I love about this group is people genuinely like each other and will talk with each other and kid with each other, but also refer business to each other and learn about what we're doing. And it's I think an exemplar of a good networking group. And I wonder if there's a way of showing that instead of telling that, but instead of saying, you must come and network. It's whatever every good business person does. Instead of showing, watch Tom network. It's like watching, Caruso sing. It's just a beautiful thing.
Adam, I think what you're talking about is perhaps a combination, if we were to storyboard this, design it, of chunk of meeting, but also maybe individual interviews or pairs of people saying, hey, I met Adam because I did this, clever postcard mailing in 2009. And Adam saw it somewhere. He's never told me where he's seen it, but he saw my postcard. And, we introduced each other. And, 10 years later, I finally came to the meeting, but we were networking all those years. I mean, just, individual stories or connection or, I have my 5th generation of referrals because of BNUG, low these 25 years. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Here's the networking live, business cards being exchanged, all those fuddy-duddies who can't do an airdrop, combined with, and maybe interspersed with, individual interviews going, oh God, I go to these meetings all the time and they're wonderful. And yeah, I get business sometimes and other times I get valuable stuff, but I mostly get great technical connections, which is a vendor thing for me, or a getting out of the house thing, or, sharing good pizza or whatever. I mean, I think interviews and examples tell the story in each in their own way. Because, you can't just preach, networking is good for you, because people who are, introverts or, wallflowers or terrified of groups, I mean, assuming we can reopen after the pandemic, I imagine you and Steve will make something happen where it's a hybrid of in-person and Zoom. Because I think that's the key way you're going to get people who are socially shy to even consider, interacting. And also it beautifully breaks down the distance barrier. So I think all that stuff is part of the stew that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's like really watching the meeting or the networking happening is really the supporting footage. It's really just, it's a way for us to to cut in between the different stories that you're telling, and you know, why this relationship that started so strangely has been such a valuable relationship over the last 20-25 years. You know, might be things like that.
Well, and also it's artificial. I mean, it's like a dating service. You know, you didn't just, you know, crash into this person's car in the parking lot, you know, organically meeting them, you know, or knock over their cart in the grocery store. You know, you went to this artificial thing that, and it's, you know, I have stepped into groups that are long standing, and it can be very cliquish, or you at least feel that way, especially if you're sensitive to being the outsider. You know, when I first stepped into a business networking meeting, to me, the analogous thing was a user group. I mean, talk about the combination here, it's both. But the first time I walked in a Chamber of Commerce meeting, you know, within the first month of my starting my business, I was like, oh, I get it. This is like a user group. We're all sharing stuff that we hopefully will support each other with. And there's folks here with all different agendas, you know, and folks who would never give anybody the time of day, and folks who are amazingly generous and outgoing, you know, and that's like a user group, you know, like a family. So I think there's all different layers there.
Darrin, can you give an example? You were talking earlier about what we as computer people will sometimes turn to a customer and say, don't use a computer for this. This is not a good use of computers. And that's the mark, in my opinion, a very good computer consultant. Can you give us some examples of where you've told someone, my friend, video is not the right medium for this?
Well, you know, I'm not sure I can point to an example. I mean, there have been probably ideas about what people think it's more common that what they think they want to communicate is not what the target audience needs to hear. And so I have to.
That's what you were saying about us. So for example, we want to talk to these young people and we know what we like about this group, but that may not be the right thing to say to them.
Well, the whole, as Martin was just saying, it's not that what you want to tell them isn't valuable. It's that you can't tell them. It's that you have to use a story or your experience with what you believe the value of it is, as opposed to
you have to
saying,
show them or give the other side of it. You know,
I get that,
months later, I got a client out of this. You know.
So, well, I'm wondering. So for younger folks, I wonder. Gerald, do you want to weigh in on this? Are you? Is that GK? Are you there? See if he's going to join us. He's part of the younger generation. Okay, so I'm wondering if you think, Darrin, with your experience with all these different audiences, if our audience are younger computer people, what do you think would call to them? What do you think if we made a video, what would really make them feel like, I really want to join this group. I want to go out of my way. I want to schlep to Newton and go to a live meeting. What do you think you talk about emotions pulling people in. What emotion could you help with a video generate that would draw people in and bring them over?
I mean, I think the most obvious thing would be sort of the value of the relationships that you've built over time, and that as a core starting place for networking of any type. You don't walk into the room trying to sell something. You're walking in the room to get to know people and develop a relationship. So emphasizing that. And you were right moments ago to say, oh, let me ask this person who might be on the call who's of the younger generation. These are the questions you need to ask them. Those of you with college age or graduated students, ask them what they see as value in what you offer as a group, because they are going to give you good answers because they are in that position.
So that's an important part of your work, is to is to do that kind of testing, water testing, with the actual audience. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, Well, I think also to Darrin's point, if we're going to work on marketing the group, I mean, when we had a run on Meetup, which I think drew in a lot of people, but another great question for that generation is, where would we find you? Where would we spark your noticing us? You know, Instagram, you know, Facebook, you know, where should we be marketing? Where should we be posting? As well as how should it be phrased, et cetera, et cetera. Because, you know, when you visit the BNUG website, it looks like something out of the 70s, you know, which it in a sense is, you know. And that's great, you know, that speaks to the character of the group. I'm not saying we need to polish or pretend we're something we're not. But you know, a key thing about marketing in my mind is, you know, what kind of fish do you want to catch and what waters do they swim in? And do you want to set foot in those waters? You know, I still don't
actually. Oh my God, I have to learn Instagram, but I guess so. I mean,
well,
Darrin, have
again, Adam, you know, you're the president. You should learn to delegate these things.
Yeah, I think so. Darrin, just to segue into that, what is the role? And we've just got just a couple more minutes before we have to wrap up. What is the role of social media in your life, like as a videographer and as a video producer? What are the most positive aspects of social media that have really helped you do your job better?
Social media is just a tool for communicating and or networking. LinkedIn is where I do a lot of networking. In terms of a marketing tool, it is, as we just said, where is my client's target audience most likely to be found? Where are they going to make their buying decisions? Where are we going to influence their thinking? And then that's where you start to add in the elements of, well, we need to connect with them on Facebook, and then we need to get them back to our website or whatever. So it's different every time. In terms of my use, I just think of it as a tool and a place where, you know, for instance, letting people know that I was going to be with you folks tonight, was able to amplify a few different posts on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you know, just let them know. So yeah, it's very utilitarian for me.
Do you have a sense of strong culture, like a sense of there's a Facebook culture, there's an Instagram culture, there's a LinkedIn culture? Do you have a strong sense of that?
Yes, but I think of it, I don't limit my thinking by what I think of those platforms. I go at it the other direction and I say, my client's target audience, where are they most likely to be? And do we need to be there to reach them? So
how do you suss that out? How do you figure out where the target audience is?
Well, I mean, it is literally what are you selling? How do they use it? Who is most likely to use that? Or who most likely needs your service? Who are those people exactly demographically? Who are the best of those people, the most profitable, and where are those people most likely to be? So that's how you work sort of backwards into finding out, you know, where they live.
That sounds like a really good question for us all to think about this month. Is to think about where are people we want to join, where they hang out. It's not obvious to me where that is. It's actually, I find computer people a little bit elusive in that sense. So it'd be very interesting to explore. Martin, did you want to say what you said in the chat just to everyone?
Oh, sure. So one of the things I learned from many different networking experiences over the years, because I would often meet people where I just didn't understand a single thing that came out of their mouth about their business. Sometimes people are very steeped in what they do. I mean, you're very articulate. I'm saying in general, I've honed these questions over many years, is my point. Is that in the spirit of networking, Darrin, what can we do for you let's say, or right now. I mean, I'm getting a sense of the kind of client you're looking for, although a couple of words would be helpful. But I also always think to ask, not just, who's your ideal client, but also what's a good source of clients for you? For example, for me, it's computer repair people. I teach people how to use computers. I do very light repair work, but a computer repair person who has that person asking all those pesky questions about how to use Microsoft Word. God, I hate it. And I'm like, oh, don't say that. Say, call Martin. And vice versa. I refer out to repair people all the time because I don't want to do that kind of work. So, is there an obvious profession that's a good source of clients for you? Are you looking for more vendors? Do you need, not to show my ignorance, you need more editors or videographers, or would a wedding photographer be a good networking connection for you? Those are my big three questions, client, source of client, vendor / colleague.
Yeah, so these are all things that I tend to work on a daily basis in terms of how I network to cultivate any one of those things, strategic partners, particular vendors or talents that could be of use in the future. And of course, looking to connect with somebody who may know the person that I want to talk to. But I think that is way too much to talk about. I will tell you what is top of mind for me right now. And there's an article I wrote in the last month on LinkedIn, which I would encourage you to read. And it is at the very top of the chat. So if you want it, if it's if Adam's going to download the file of the chat, I would encourage you to read this. And oh God, where in heaven is it? Maybe did I put it in?
I can maybe.
It's the
maybe
one that
By the way, I
I'll put it
encourage
in.
everyone to download the chat as part of your. If you go to the lower right hand corner, you'll have the option to download to save the chat at the end. So definitely, please do that. So
I'm going to put this link in, and I'm just going to tell you briefly what the article is about. So obviously we're, God willing, coming out of the end of the most collectively impactful experience of our lives across multiple generations. What is going to be important, and I wrote this from the point of view of telling nonprofits, is that there is going to be this, what I'm calling a rare emotional currency. The stories that people are going to have to tell about how you, either as a business owner or as a nonprofit, the stories that your clients or your members are going to tell about how you helped them get through this difficult time are going to be just incredibly emotionally charged and authentic stories. And so it is incumbent upon you, obligatory, to ask those questions. How did we help you? Or even to dial this back a half a step further. If you were to go to all your current clients, I'd tell you to ask them two questions. Over the last month or the last year, how would you rate our relationship 1 to 10? And if they say, oh, it was a 7, you say, that's great, wonderful. So the second question, how could I get that to 10? What could I do to get that to 10? So right now it's about it's not about the logistics, it's all about the emotional value of what's going to happen.
Darrin, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us and teaching us.
Pleasure.
And
great pleasure.
I hope we'll be able to think about this for us and also for our customers. And really appreciate you coming. Next month, we're hoping to have the archivist of the digital archivist for the Boston Public Library coming to speak. Tom Blake. So definitely encourage everyone to join us, and encourage people to come to our board meeting. Just go to the BNUG website to sign up. And I hope people will think about this mysterious market of ours, of people who I think would benefit a lot from this group, but are shy perhaps, or uncomfortable coming to a group, and think about how we might send a message that, you know, we built a lot of pretty kitchens, and we can build your kitchen too. Maybe there's a way we can get across that message. Thank you all for coming. I'm gonna leave the meeting going to if people want to hang out. And really thank everyone for coming. Take good care.
I'll leave the meeting open until
And
9.
Darrin, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, bye, everybody.
Thanks, Darrin. This was
Bye,
great.
Good night.
And Adam, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yep.